He's indeed absolutely correct about that. Because 65% of African labor force are working in agriculture. And 32% of entire Africa's GDP is actually getting generated from agriculture as well. That is a huge number. And if you don't really target agricultural transformation and innovation, you will not achieve, Africa will not achieve MDGs, and also post-MDG goals as well. So it's particularly important for us to be adamant about using ICT as a transformation tool for Africa. Well, we have distinguished panels here. We have 6 distinguished panels. We are missing Mr. Kim, who have expert knowledge and experience in the field of using ICT for agricultural transformations. And I'm going to give you the game plan. I'm going to introduce one by one, and they would actually announce a core message. And then what's going to happen is we have pointers. We have about 7 pointers for discussions, and I will ask them for comments, and then we'll open up the floor, because I'm sure that you have a lot of questions, a lot of comments to say. Now, I'll start from Michael. Michael is, Nkonu. Sorry, African name is also difficult to pronounce as well. Michael Nkonu is from the GSMA Association, and he's tasked to do the mobile applications for agricultural transformations. He's an expert on MAgri, and they have a huge program. So, Michael, can you actually start saying your core message?
Thank you very much. My name is Michael Nkonu. I work for GSM Association, and I'm the agricultural specialist. My background is in agricultural economics and work in the sector for the last 12, 13 years. So we'll be talking more about how we can apply technology in agriculture, the need of technology in agriculture at this particular time of Africa's development.
Would you like to continue, or?
Well, I would that's fine. Okay, cool. So in terms of technology, I mean, it's imperative where we are now in the life of Africa's agriculture and economic development that technology is effectively applied to support our production processes. We all know that agriculture is a major part of our economic activities. In many countries, it's contributing between 30 to 40% of GDP. And is employing a rather huge number of people in the sector. We're looking at about 60% of most Africans working in the agriculture sector. Yet we also know that in terms of productivity, Africa's productivity is about 1/6 of what the potential is. So there is a huge gap between what we can produce and what we are producing, and what we need to produce to feed the growing population in Africa. What is important at this point is to see how we can increase efficiency and effectively apply technology to increase yield, also to be able to maximize the efficiency of the agricultural supply chain. Technology could be applied across board. It could be applied at the very initial stages of information advisory, which is the basic extension services. It could go all the way to the transactional services and also into planning smart logistics for agriculture. So there are effective ways that we can do it. There are 2 things that we cannot run away from at this point. 1 is globalization, 2 is climate change. All of those affect Africa effectively. And to be able to deal with those issues, we actually need a lot of technological applications in agriculture to deal with the issues, to help the smallholders to produce effectively and to produce in ways that are produce sufficient food to feed Africa's growing population. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. The next distinguished panelist is Ken Lohento. He's the ICT4D program coordinator for the Technical Center for Agriculture and Rural Cooperation in Netherlands. But he has been working in ICT4D issues for last 15 or more than last 15 years. So please, Ken.
Thank you. My name is Ken Lohento. I work for the Technical Center for Agricultural and Rural Cooperation, CTA. It is an international organization based in the Netherlands, supported by ACP and EU countries. So we work on agricultural policies, agricultural value chain, and also to support information and communication management for agricultural stakeholders, including ICT for agriculture. And I am one of the ICT for agriculture program coordinators. So for CTA, ICT is very, very important for agriculture, and we have been actually promoting the use of ICT in agriculture for more than 20 years. CTA has been maybe the first or among the first organization that have tried to promote the use of CD-ROM, for example, in agricultural activities by agricultural researchers. And nowadays, we are more and more working to promote mobile phone use in agriculture along the entire value chain. Some of the activities that we do related to ICT in agriculture at CTA, for example, are training on ICT, on Web2 tools for agricultural stakeholders along the value chain. This include farmer organizations, extension officers, stakeholders in agricultural research, etc., and other organizations that are promoting, for example, extension at the ground level who are not from the public sector. We also do a number of policy workshops on ICT importance for agriculture to encourage ICT adoption in the agricultural sector. For our training activities that we call Web2, for Web2 learning opportunities, we even received last May the United Nations WSIS 2013 prize in the e-agriculture section. It is a prize that has been awarded to our work following, let's say, a vote by the international community of those who are interested in those kind of issues, which testify that ICT application can be really effective, can be really adopted inside the agricultural value chain by agricultural stakeholders. We also are organizing, for example, next week here in Rwanda, an international conference on ICT for agriculture. We call it ICT for Ag, from the 4th to the 8th of November, so here in Kigali. It will be held actually here at Serena Hotel, and I'm also here for that. It is a meeting that will gather about 400 people from agricultural entrepreneurs, ICT for agricultural entrepreneurs, ministries, etc. It is organized in partnership and co-hosted actually by the Ministry of Agriculture of Rwanda, and also supported by the Ministry of Youth and ICT. So this means that we are more and more having a lot of interest as far as ICT use in agriculture is concerned by all stakeholders. So it's not only farmers actually, but also other agricultural stakeholders that are active along the value chain. Let's say 10 years ago, people were not at all hardly talking about ICT in agriculture, but with the increase, the spread penetration, the great penetration of mobile phone, for example, in the sector, even in rural area, people are more and more talking about that. So I hope that our discussion will also contribute to understanding and discussing those issues so that we see how we can, for example, effectively harness ICT policies in the agricultural sector, how we can do our best so that ICT policy stakeholders from let's collaborate better with agricultural stakeholders so that we have a more sustained sector. Thank you.
Thank you. The next distinguished panelist is Eddie Abdul Dankwa. He has been working as a value chain development expert in the Ministry of Food and Agriculture in Ghana. And he has also more than 15 years of experience working on how to apply ICT for development. And I think the value chain is one of the key words. I think it's going to be very interesting for the discussion today. Please.
Thank you very much. Well, as he said, okay, he mentioned my name. I work with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. And just as he said, for the past 15 or so years, I've been working in ICTs for development, and with specific emphasis on agriculture. Ken was talking about the transition over the years. I remember about 15 years ago, let me say around the latter part of 1990s, so 98, 99, we dreamt of some great ideas that we thought were so great, and that was to migrate our small and medium-scale farmers to e-business. I mean, at that time, it was such a crazy idea that nobody wanted to even listen to us. But we were confident that, yes, we could use ICT, because then ICT had become a topic, and we thought we could run on that and do something for these poor farmers. We had an organization from the Netherlands who believed in our crazy idea, so they wanted to support us. And so we developed what we call the e-commerce for non-traditional export project. And it was interesting, the results from that project. It was a simple idea to give these farmers the opportunity to trade online. I'm sure by now you'll also be thinking that at that time it was a crazy idea. But we had a lot of success stories. Of course, there were challenges. Key among them was connectivity. At that time, we didn't have mobile phones. Cell phones were very seldom, and mobile connectivity was restricted only to the capital city. So you could imagine such a situation. Another critical issue we faced was e-payment systems. I mean, how can the person receive payment for the things that he sells, for example? But 15 years down the lane, we are in 2013. Now, the whole Ghana, we have mobile connectivity everywhere. Cell phones have internet on them. We have broadband, terrestrial broadband connectivity all over the place. So what are we using this for? Now that the system is, the land is fertile, how are we using these opportunities to enhance our cultural development? I mean, how do we smarten our agriculture? There are a number of programs and projects that are going on currently in our agriculture sector, and I'm sure we are going to talk of some of these things. For example, we have what we call an e-extension platform, where we have smartened extension delivery system in the country. There are a number of programs, very interesting programs that are going on. I think you have heard about this Isoko thing. I mean, these things, you hear them big, but when you go to the ground and you see how these things are working on the farmers, it's interesting to know. I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to talk about some of these things in these discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next one, next panelist is Mary Lucy Bigango. She's the coordinator of the Agriculture Information and Communication Center, CICA, here in Rwanda. It is a part of the Minagri, Minister of Agriculture, and she's expert in collecting, analyzing, disseminating, sharing information for the farmers.
Thank you. Yeah, as he said, my name is Mary Ruchibigango. I am coordinating the Agriculture Information and the Communication Center at the Ministry of Agriculture and the Animal Resources. Bring the issue of information and dissemination in this context of working smart agriculture. The issue which I wanted to bring into your attention is just to see on how do we bring all related key elements from different corners so that we pack the information in a very practical way, whereby we are talking ICT applications, but how is it relevant to our farmers who are the end users of this information and the knowledge? But so with the experience of almost 13 years working in agriculture research and extension, what I experienced in information collection, processing, packaging, but also sharing, it is the issue of closing ourselves in the different boxes, because the farmers, example, if you are providing the information regarding to the input, example, fertilizer or seeds, but that farmer is not only working on that, but how do we connect all the elements in his or her environment so that the information we provide it is tackling all the key challenges he's experienced or she's experiencing in the whole commodity chain or in the whole process. So here we have to look into two key elements of the information. So the information you are packaging, whatever information or whatever ICT application you are using, how do we pack that information? Is that information just a hot information for immediate decision making for a farmer, or is it an information which is a knowledge management, which is helping a farmer not only to make right decision in certain time, but about knowing all the key elements and steps which would make the farmer to implement step by step. So sometimes we don't make a distinction. What is hot information just to provide for the people to act immediately, but what are information which are knowledge, which are needed to be processed, but also linked to the other information or challenges which our farmers are encountering. So this element of thinking the whole process and not only being binded, example in data collection, but also looking at the whole process of data collection, processing, storage, and sharing, it is very, very key in whatever we are doing if we want to make our agriculture smart. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary. And I think she's pointing out a very important point here. Information, if you cannot use it properly, if it doesn't become knowledge, it's going to be useless. So how ICT would not only provide information, but empower people, empower these farmers so that they could become knowledge. So the next distinguished panelist is Mr. Atahe Maiga. He's a resident representative of the UN custodian of the agriculture program, which is FAO. He has been distinguished career not only for the FAOs, but in many other places, including in Canada and Benin as well. Please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. As he has said, I'm the FAO country representative to Rwanda. I've been to Rwanda just, I hope you are hearing me. I've been to Rwanda just 7 months now, so I'm just learning my way to this country. Yeah, I work for FAO, and as you know, FAO has a mandate that covers, the agriculture sector as wide as possible. Agriculture meaning livestock, forestry, fisheries, and climate change issues. So our mandate is really, whatever can help, reduce or eliminate food insecurity across the globe. I'm here today not as an expert of ICT, but I do recognize, because for us in FAO, the potential of the mobile technology to benefit the rural community in improving, the food security, it's a certainty. It's not just if we believe in that. So that's why I'm here this morning also, because just one statistic, in 2000, it was estimated that only about 25% of all mobile phones, were to be in developing countries. Today, that number is 75% of all mobile phones are, in the developing countries. So this is really telling us that, the importance of, mobile technology for agricultural development. In terms of what the FAO can bring into that matter, I think FAO always, we are a platform to facilitate exchanges of ideas and experiences, good practices. And for that, FAO maintain a website address that is called e-agriculture. It's an e-agriculture community whereby everybody can share ideas and experiences, in terms of e-agriculture. So I will encourage you to visit that website. Is www.e-agriculture.org. Beside that, I can mention also that FAO can support countries and regions because of our presence at the regional and country level in any capacity development, that can bring ICT and agriculture together. On a normative way side, we also can help countries develop policies that can help improve, the use of ICT for agriculture. So basically, I think those are, main points that I want to mention. And just by closing my introductory remark is to say that in Rwanda here, you know, they call their agricultural policy strategy is called Strategic Plan for the Transformation of Agriculture. Transformation, it's a key word. And in that transformation agenda, ICT will play certainly an important role. So to me, it's really, you know, this discussion is quite useful in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ataher. Indeed, they are actually gracefully hosting. We're going to create an online forum right after this, this session so that we could actually keep discussing on this very important topic with these experts. So the last but not the least, Hiroyuki Kobayashi, he's the Chief Representative of JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agencies. They have actually a mandate here in Rwanda, and one of the mandate is agriculture. So could you explain to us about your program?
Thank you, Atsushi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Hiroyuki Kobayashi. I am a Chief Representative of JICA Rwanda office. JICA is the Japan International Cooperation Agency. We are the body implementing a Japanese ODA. So I'm very sure that I'm a very stranger in this panelist among us. I'm something man. I'm always find trouble to catch up with such a quick development of the technologies. Actually, still I'm loving to use this very traditional not a smartphone. But let me explain why such a man like me, why I'm here now today. Actually, as you may know that TICAD 5, it's a Tokyo International Conference on African Development. It was held last June in Yokohama, Tokyo. In that time, His Excellency, Japanese Prime Minister, Mr. Shinzo Abe, he showed us some very clear direction of the future Japanese cooperation in Africa. One of the most interesting something, his direction he showed us in that occasion is expanding ICAWA. Expanding ICAWA. Yes, actually middle of his speech in that opening session, he introduced one person, asked him to stand up his seat, and introduced him to the all honorable audience in the hall. His name is Mr. Aikawa, Jiro Aikawa. He was a JICA expert. He was an expert of the project in Kenya before. And the project name is, let me see that, Smallholder Horticulture Empowerment Project. Actually, Mr. Abe introduced him that the person who succeeded in doubling the income of 2,500 farmers in Kenya was none other than this Mr. Aikawa. And also, he continued that this project, Smallholder Horticulture Empowerment Project, we call it SHEP. SHEP project has been arranged in the model that Japan will, in the future, promote in 10 countries in Africa. So this is one of the something that direction he showed us in that occasion. So now it's my turn, JICA. Now we have to expand this SHEP approach and the SHEP project in the African country, including Rwanda. Actually, in this SHEP approach and SHEP project, we introduced some kind of market-oriented agriculture to reduce some kind of gap between the farmer and market. Yeah, of course, market side and farmer, there are big gaps, like a physical gap and also information gap. Now we have to reduce this gap and let the farmer to access the market is one of the key. So actually we have some experience with that, and also that we really aware that to reduce that gap, ICT technology is really useful. At the same time, we really need that capacity development of farmer users. That is something that the lesson we learned from that. So today, I'm very happy if you can share some of our experience with you, and also that I really hope that we can discuss and get some good view for the future with regard to ICT. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have now pointers of discussions. They have given us the pointers to proceed with this main theme of this conference, which is transform, innovate, and access. First, the number one actually pointers they have given us is how are we going to deliver real-time information relevant to farmers? What are we going to do? What can we do? How can we deliver such information such as weather, when to put fertilizer, when to put seed into the farms, or this proper use of different technology and techniques of doing farming. And I think there's also a challenge of localization of content here. The farmers are usually literacy challenged. So for Africa, what can we do? What is the best way of delivering this information and knowledge, and so that they can become knowledge, using a creative and innovative way? And that also we have a challenge of infrastructure as well still. We talk about mobile revolution. Yes, we are, but data connectivity is still low. Maybe farmers do have simple phones and they're using it, but the internet connectivity is very low and expensive as well. So these are some of the challenges that we're gonna ask our panelists to give us some experience and views and opinions about it. And I think I'll ask Mary, since you're the information communications specialist.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the issue of delivering the information timely, I think it is directly also related on what I said before, but maybe I can practically refer on what we are doing at the Ministry of Agriculture in the Center of Agricultural Information and Communication. So the key element here, it's looking into the importance of data collection, processing, packaging, storage, sharing, and dissemination. So there is the issue of right information, but also the classification of what information do we need to send. So what information, the information we are going to send, it is guided by two things. The purpose of the information which is needed, but also the classification of audiences. So, and that's why sometimes we miss this point whereby we just disseminate the information without looking really who is needing this information. And is it what information just for a farmer or group of farmer or a cooperative just to act, or is it a knowledge management which help the farmer or the group of farmer to implement? So let me give an example. If for example, it is information about eradicating certain disease, maybe for animal or for crops. So there are information you might just send for awareness, and hereby you would just think which channel, if you have to send this information very quickly. And here you would think like a channel, like a mobile application, you would just think about TV in the place where not too much remote, but also the radio, because what I can just tell you in the context of Rwanda, at least you will find that every household farmer is owning a radio. So if the information is about the awareness for just a quick decision, you have to be sure that you pack that information and use that channel. But if it is information which need to pack it in a very clear and a very step way, example, it is about to eradicate a certain disease, the farmer do not need just to hear about that disease. It is now not only information, it's about the knowledge. So it's about steps. So here you can use the different ICT application, like we are using the website, we use the link, we pack those steps, but also it is about thinking the farmers who cannot read, whereby you take all the information you have packaged for radio programs, you translate it through the ICT application, like a website, through different link. But again, you go to another steps of just putting a illustration for the farmer who cannot read or who cannot understand the language, who can just read that illustration and know what to do or take a further step. So it is the issue of what information, who need that information, and how do you pack that information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Indeed, actually, I used to get very upset. If someone called me, oh, you're the computer person. What are you going to do? Having a PCs in the middle of the desert and so on. There, I said, it is about appropriate technology. For me, actually, a post-it is ICTs. Whiteboard is ICT. Blackboard is ICT. And radio certainly is one of the best way of communicating the information and knowledge and sharing knowledge with farmers. Maybe we can continue with this topic. Michael?
Yeah, thank you. I think I do agree with you that radio is one way to disseminate information. And also, there are other new channels that we need to begin to look at in terms of how we disseminate information. The key question here is, what's the level of interactivity on the information that we disseminate? We can just give information, and we actually just not purposely targeting that information. It might not be very useful for farmers, but we need to look at options and using technology to try to create or increase the interactiveness between the one who is giving the information and the one who is receiving the information. That is key if we are going to make any impact in the information we are giving to producers. Number two, information needs to be purposed. It needs to be tailored to the need of producers. So we need to understand what those needs are, and we need to be able to customize the content that goes into into the system. The key problem I have seen across many African countries, and even in Asia where we are working, using mobile technology for agriculture, is having local content, the ability to have local content developers that develop content that fit into the local situation. The information is there. So I think there are sometimes that we think there's no information available. There's a lot of information available. The question is, how do you then purpose that information for delivery through the different channels that are available? So we need to find ways of doing that. I'm sure if we go to the ministry in Rwanda, we're going to see a lot of information, booklets that are available but are never reaching farmers. How are we actually going to get information out to them? Then there are two different types of information we should be looking at. We should be looking at static and dynamic information. For example, if we are telling a farmer to plant 60 by 60, that's very static information. It's not going to change in the medium term. But if we are telling a farmer to apply a chemical to his crops, there are different factors that affect the activeness or the potency of that chemical. The altitude might be a problem, climate might be a problem, water, rainfall. All those issues means that we cannot actually just throw out standard information out there to farmers to think that that information is going to work. And I've seen so many setups throwing standard information to everyone and expecting that to work. So we need to find ways that we increase the interactiveness of information between the receiver, the recipient, and the giver of the information. He needs to be able to get back to us and ask more questions about what his needs are and what fits for purpose for him. And I think that's how we need to begin to look at information. The final one that I would like to touch on is about weather information. Again, I've seen across many countries in Africa, people taking meteorological data and throwing it at farmers and say the rainfall is going to be this, temperature is going to be, low is going to be 13 degrees and high is going to be 30 degrees. It actually means nothing to the farmer. We need to apply that information in the context that makes sense to the farmer. So if it's going to rain 30 millimeters in 1 hour, what does that mean for the farmer? What does that mean for producing cereals? What does that mean for your livestock? That's the way we need to look at information. And if we purpose information that way, then we will be able to make impact and it will be useful for the farmer.
Thank you. Indeed, contextualization and localization is the key for providing these information analysis to our target, which is client farmers. Maybe Hiroki, can you take a crack at it?
Thank you very much. I really agree with those comments. For whom, for what? It's a very point. Especially in the case of the developing country, for whom is now very important. Because, for example, in Japan like that, almost all area we have infrastructure there. Everyone has also same educational background have. And the same, actually Japanese, we used to speak only Japanese. But in the case of the different other countries, very, very variety in Japan, and sorry, in countries. Like city, rural, infrastructure, people, there are many varieties. We always think about who is our target. Then we have to produce something, device and contents is very important. Especially that in the case of the farmer, yes, that Isoko, it can utilize through the mobile phone. It's very wonderful ideas because the farmer, they don't have not so much computers, but many people has a mobile phone. It's a very good device for them. Sometimes, for example, that contents, for example, 5 grams of, for example, 5 grams But you know that in the farmer peoples, they cannot measure the 5 grams or 5 meters. How do that? Yes, let's give the information. Maybe 5 caps, it become 5 grams. Or 5 steps, it's a 5 meter. This kind of something, a quality of the information for the customer is a very important, especially in the this developing countries. That is something my comment.
Thank you. Artesh?
I want to stress what my colleague have said, because, if we want to use wisely ICT into agriculture, technology is not enough. Because sometimes we tend to think that, you have the technology and then, so the content issue is crucial. And in particular in our region here in Africa, we have that challenge of content, which is most of the time is not adapted, to the context. So I really, from these exchanges, I want us, to keep in mind that this is a critical issue if we want ICT to be used wisely in agriculture. Thanks.
Thank you. Would you like to add? Okay.
Yeah, just also I wanted to add on what my fellow said on the issue of content and the flexibility, and also linking to the technology developers. Because sometimes we are working closely with these ICT developers, and sometimes they show you this is a good product or this is a good ICT applications. But when you just question, but how is it flexible so that whenever you want to adjust the information, the system is flexible, you are just stuck. So I think this also needs the cross collaboration with the partners who are ICT developers, because if there are issues in the dynamics, really it is in agriculture. So there is no way you can always give that clarity you have said or repackage the content if the system by itself, it's not easy to adjust. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, ICT is a tool, not a panacea, not the mean itself. ICT is really the tools so that we can do something. So I think that is a very important point, I think. Now, the second point that we have is financing. We all know the rural farmers is going to be very difficult to get financing, and also insurance schemes as well, precisely because they do not have access to the traditional, financing institutions. A lot of farmers do not have access to banks. How are you going to actually use ICT to solve that? We have an interesting case like in Kenya. M-Pesa is actually changing the farmers and also rural areas as well. But also, another important part is microfinancing. We do have microfinancing, it's cooperative. But how much the farmers have to pay as premium, the rate of these loans are astronomically high. They sometimes have to pay 30–40% for their small loans. That is because transaction cost is so high. How can you actually lower these transaction costs? These are some of the ideas I think ICT could completely change and increase access for the farmers. And here for this comment, maybe Michael, can you start?
Yeah, thank you. It's common knowledge that one of the key problems that African farmers are facing is access to credit and finance. Where they have access to finance is quite expensive, and it makes it very difficult for them to be able to assess whatever finance is available to produce. The other point is that even to assess finance, the records that farmers need to assess finance is not there. So what is the level of finance that they can be given? Or what is their credibility? What's the credibility on which they are going to assess finance from institutions that give them finance? So those are key issues that farmers are facing. What we have seen across board in the last few years we've been working is that you can actually integrate the production system to enable you to track the data from the farmer and use that to determine his credit worthiness. So for example, if a farmer is selling products through online, or if you have access to the data on production, which is being entered into the system, the number of acreages, the amount of bags it's producing per year, you can actually use that, multiply by the price to determine how much the farmer is making. So what then is happening is that in countries like Kenya, where you have M-Pesa, which has become very entrenched in the system, you can actually know how much the farmer is receiving for his products. and then use that data to be able to determine how much you can give to the farmer in a way that he can pay it back. Now, the other thing that is happening in the financial sector, which is probably becoming the digital financial inclusion, as we are calling it, is that once you get to the point where farmers are beginning to use that kind of system in terms of transacting their processes through the mobile platform, you can actually then begin to determine what level of insurance they also need. So using data points, particularly weather information from the areas of production, you can actually determine the vulnerability of their crops and then determine how much the level of insurance that these farmers need. Now, there is a system already that's running in Kenya where you can actually, where some banks are actually insuring, or insurance companies are insuring farmers in the dry zones using weather information, multiplying a bit of calculation with what productivity could be depending on water levels and rainfall patterns, and then knowing how much they can pay farmers in terms of crop failure. So what they do is that they insure the farmers against the inputs, so that if you buy seeds and you plant them and it doesn't rain, then you can be given a little amount of money that enables you to be able to buy seeds for the next season. So there are very many ways that we can actually digitally include farmers in the system, enable them to access credit, and also insure them for their crops. And using mobile applications, which is the area where I work most, it's becoming very easy to be able to collect the data and analyze the information and enable financial institutions to be able to provide finance to farmers. That way, we will be able to reduce the cost of finance, because the major thing that actually increases the cost of finance is sending the loan officer there to go and check the creditworthiness of this farmer. So if the farmer is going to borrow 1,000 Kenyan shillings or 1,000 Rwandan francs, and the loan officer is taking 2,000 to go there and come back, what is going to be the interest level? So it doesn't take, it's not a magic for us to determine the level of interest that are being charged on those the credit facilities that are going to farmers. It's just very simple and it's basic. So if we can reduce that by getting information online, tracking the production systems, knowing the acreages, knowing where they are selling, and be able to understand the transactions of those farmers, we will actually be able to reduce the cost of finance. And that means that many farmers will actually have access to finance for production.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, it's indeed actually very exciting to think like M-Pesa data. You know, these farmers pay every month, probably schools, water, electricity, and so on. If you could actually tally this data, we actually have a great tools of determining the credit worthiness. And if you could get, you know, these farmers access to small loans using very low interest rate, I think it's going to revolutionize the agriculture sector in Africa.
No, I don't have much to add, but to say I think it's an important topic in the sense that we all know that access to finance has always been, you know, a constraint, you know, in agriculture. And to me, ICT plays an important role in the sense that it can really greatly help reduce the transaction costs and also the accessibility, because we know that most of the farming is happening in you know, remote areas whereby access is very difficult. So technology can help that. And to some extent also, I think, as we know, women already have also additional challenges, you know, in accessing to finance. And in my view, ICT can also, you know, help, you know, resolve that issue. So it's, you know, I think it's the contribution of ICT in access to financing is just tremendous.
Eddie, please.
Yeah, thank you. You know, when we talk of technology solving problems, we are quick to make blanket statements, and we expect that it should work. But there are critical challenges that are on the ground that every time we have to look at. For example, in the areas I'm very familiar with, in Ghana and in West Africa, look, it is very difficult to get a farmer to tell you how much he earns. I mean, because of some cultural issues. If he harvests 10 bags of maize, he'll tell you, I got only 3 bags. And so like Michael said, it's difficult for the banks to get the actual worthiness of these farmers so that they can give the loans. Again, they think that if they declare their worthiness, their taxes are going to increase, and so it's always difficult for them to bring up this information. And so technologists would have to find innovative ways of getting this information. The banks will not do it. I mean, it's a cost for them, and so they will not do it. And so in Ghana, for example, there is an application where the system uses aggregators, and then these aggregators, because they buy from the farmers, they register their farmers. And so they are able to, right from planting to harvest, they are able to estimate how much they are producing and how much they are getting. And just as Michael said, when you have this information, the banks could use it. But are the banks prepared to even go and get this information? They see agriculture as a risky business. And so, for example, he talked about insurance. That's one way of supporting agriculture, especially the smallholders. You'd have to be able to convince the farmer on the ground that he needs that thing. They will tell you we need credit, yes. But how do you process them? How do you get them to go through the process of receiving the credit? And I think we have to be smart to be able to get the actual tools. Yes, there are a number of mobile apps there, but are we really meeting that need? Are we meeting that need? And the other question is, do they even really need that money? I mean, sometimes we are quick to say the farmers need money, they need money, they need money. But do they really need that money? Can they get other forms of financing their operations? I was in the previous session up there, and there was a lot of talk about financing businesses and things, but nobody talked about the cost of the finance. I mean, if the farmer is taking money from a bank or any of these financial institutions, and he's paying 8% per month, 8% per month, how do you expect him to go on? It's because of the cost of processing these finances are so much. And so I think the techie people here would have to find innovative ways of getting around this problem. We shouldn't just say that technology can do it. Let us go to the ground and see how we can, the innovations that we can use to transform them, to be able to get the right thing to the farmer. That is the only way we can solve this financial issue.
Thank you, Eddie. Please, Ken.
I would like to comment on some aspects that have been raised by my colleague Eddie, especially regarding the challenges that we face regarding using ICT for finance and insurance. I think, as he said, we usually say that this is possible, but if you consider the M-Pesa, for example, or mobile payment, of course, we are having more and more those kind of initiatives in many African countries, but it is not being generalized in those countries because there are a lot of other challenges that are around the use of mobile payment, because you need to build, let's say, different arrangement between different stakeholders, from the bank to the farmer organization or the farmers, or to, let's say, even the government. So the need and the difficulty to build those partnerships are really, 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 let's say, important and key. And adopting those innovations that are just implemented in other countries is not straightforward in the other countries. And usually we seem to ignore that. We know, for example, that Syngenta Foundation, they are trying to use mobile phone to promote agricultural insurance for farmers, and Michael also addressed that a bit. But we are not seeing that in other countries. it is not that straightforward. So I think that while we talk about the possibilities, the opportunity that we are having in ICT use for agriculture, we need really to also see the context in which those innovations are being deployed, so that we see if really they can be adopted in other contexts.
Thank you, Michael. I think we should move on because we have a lot of pointers actually to discuss. When you actually Google smart agriculture, when you Google that, it actually comes out climate smart agriculture. So there was actually a bit of confusion as smart agriculture, what does that mean? Climate smart or not? The reason I'm saying this is we have a grave challenge on the climate change. One scientific journal called Science actually pointed out, they published a study saying, if we don't do anything about climate change, by 2030, we will lose 30% of maize in Africa. 30% of production is going to be reduced. We're talking about catastrophe. We're talking about the famine in massive scales, because how many people rely on maize? So it's really important to tackle this, and especially we in Africa. Africa is very vulnerable to this challenge because of geography. So how can we tackle this using ICTs? I think is going to be very important things. Maybe, and FAO actually is doing great things. So.
Okay, I'll say some few words in that because as the moderator just mentioned, we are all aware of climate change, and it is here to stay. I think there is nothing we can do about it, but what we can do is precisely to adapt, to have strategies, adaptation strategies, mitigation strategies, So smart agriculture is, exactly about that, how to have strategies that combine adaptation, mitigation, and development, so that, we can cope, to say so, with climate change. I will just want to, mention one issue here that ICT can help address, which has been, I think, briefly mentioned, is the use of weather data. Because we all know that there are weather data are available, and but the use that they are made available in terms of just telling farmers that the mean rainfall, it's not enough. It's not what farmers need today, because farmers are quite aware of climate change today, because they will tell you, at this time of the year it used to, so when can I plant? When can I, plant? So what they want to know is, when is the rain going to start? For how long? What could be the intensity? And also, in general, the weather information is provided, at the district level, in a kind of a general sense. So localized information is also very critical, so that farmers, have the tools that can allow them to do sensible farming. And in that respect, it is important, this, I think we should get to that also, but this partnership, between public and private, because when we talk about, localized, weather information and so forth, that's where I think private sector can be of assistance because, of their proximity. So precisely, for climate smart agriculture, I think ICT can play an important role in, I'm just mentioning this because I feel it is important, in how to make the use of weather information useful to the farmer. And they are asking very simple questions, and we need to provide them, through technology. So those are the
Thank you, Atesh. I think we should move on because we only have 14 minutes to go, and I want to make sure that give you plenty of time so that you could pitch in your questions and comments and so on. One of the things we have been talking about and then keep coming up is the value chain, supply chains in agriculture, because that precisely is very important. Even if you actually produce very high, like horticulture, for example, flowers, but if you could not actually have the value chain and supply chains, farmers may not be able to actually export it or they sell it to the right people. So I think these are the interesting challenge. I think ICT has a lot of things to contribute to mitigate and so on. So I would like to ask. I'm sure this is keep coming up. So many of you want to pitch in, but perhaps Eddie, you could start.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think in my introductory remarks, I talked about the projects that we had some 10, 15 years ago. I mean, the basic problem underlying our crazy idea was the fact that Ghana is that big, and production occurs at various points. And so in one area, there was so much production to the extent that post-harvest losses were up to about 40, 50%. And in other places in the same country, there was scarcity. I mean, they couldn't get the same commodity. That was the idea. So our idea of the project was to sort of move commodities around. I mean, use ICT to move commodities around. And the idea was information, information, information. I mean, getting people know what is where and where it's needed, we thought was one way of solving that problem. And so, connectivity. At that time, we didn't have connectivity. It was a major challenge. Now we have it. Systems are being built. A lot of mobile apps are being developed. But the cost, because now we previously were looking at agricultural production. Now we are looking at agricultural value chains, where we are looking at activities from inputs to the consumer. And they all, at every stage of this link, you need information. And so, how do we link up? How does the input dealer know what inputs the farmer requires? We need systems that will send that information. How does a farmer know that I'm producing this commodity, this factory needs this volume of the commodity? There should be some communication, and we need that connectivity. And so it is not just having internet, but what runs on the internet. I mean, I have an ICT background, and we technologists, we are always fascinated about we said we need internet, we need this bandwidth, we need that because we want our systems that we develop run at this speed and things like that. But is that enough? How are the applications meeting the needs of that smallholder farmer? My work has always been involved with that small farmer, and so my focus is always there. A lot of times we look at the few big corporations, farm companies, and we think that once they are okay, that is it. But there are critical needs. Now, we talk of smartphones. How many can afford the smartphone? Yes, there's internet on my smartphone, but how many can afford it? In some workshop I was in a few months ago, I mean, the people were saying that, no, we have to do away with all those non-smartphones. Let's force everybody to get a smartphone. And so that is how technology is driving us. But can't we do something about the phone that the farmer has been using the past 5 years that he thinks is okay for him? Can't we do something for him to get that connectivity and get his information on that phone? There are programs that we have now that use simple SMS technologies. And so he doesn't need to go browse the internet. The fact that the phone can receive SMS, he has connectivity, and therefore he can receive the relevant and critical information that he needs to work. And so let us try and look at the issue from the point of view of the person down there who doesn't know what a smartphone is. Or if he knows, he doesn't see why he should spend $150 to buy a smartphone when he can use $10 to $15 to get a phone. And so in our thinking of connectivity, let's not look at the high end. Let's look at the small end. What is workable for the person down there, the farmer, the small processor, the small agribusiness person down there? What is workable for him and what he can effectively use? I think that is the way we should go, instead of always looking at the high end, the big things, which I think are good but may not be applicable to the people that we want to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Anyone want to? I know it's going to be a long post, so please be concise because we want to give the chance to the audience as well. So, Ken, please.
Okay. I think that if we talk about the value chain or the supply chain, we need to think about the different, let's say, activities or the different stakeholders that are along that chain. For example, it means that, first of all, we need to think about, let's say, agricultural research organization. We need to think about extension officers who will provide the advices to the farmers so that they grow the crop. We need to think about the farmers themselves and their organization who can work with them and maybe do advocacy so that their interests are raised. But also we need to talk about and to strengthen the linkage with, let's say, big farmer organizations, big traders, agro-traders. Because in some countries, we see that there are not, for example, strong linkages between the small-scale farmers and the supermarkets, because some people consider themselves as big private sector organization and the other one are small organization, and their interests are not all the time the same. But we really need to strengthen that linkage, which is beyond ICT. And if we have any kind of ICT application and those linkages are not strengthened, then the ICT cannot work. This is also the reason why I think that we need to really have a holistic view when we talk about ICT integration in agriculture. We have to really think about the appropriate, let's say, ICT strategies that can be integrated, harnessed to agriculture, so that when at the ministry level we have a holistic vision, then we can see really how we can do that. We need to have more collaboration between the ICT policy stakeholders, the Ministry of ICTs, and the agricultural ministries, so that they collaborate better to see really how they can use the ICTs along the different chains of the agriculture. So if we don't do that, if we don't strengthen those linkages, I think that we won't be really able to enhance or support the supply chain. Thank you, Ken.
We'll move on. Women constitute half of the world, but there are a disproportionate amount of women who actually are farmers. 60–70% of farmers in Africa are women. How can you actually empower them? How can they benefit from using ICTs? I would like to ask, maybe Ricky, you can, yes, women's empowerment and using ICTs?
I really want to make another comment, but let me first answer to you. Yes, what we did in our project in Kenya, I call that the SHEP project. Actually, that we are aware that in Kenya, in that situation, also 70% of the farming work is done by the women. So, but the situation is something like that is still that you know that the manager is a man and the woman is a kind of the laborers. So, first maybe we provide more something like the training for the women. Sometimes we encourage the men to understand something like the role of the women at the farming work. Then finally what happened? It's very simple. Now that the men and women, it's become something like the co-managers. So it makes some very, very efficiencies, improve the efficiency of the working at the farm. Yes, it's very difficult to figure out how much, how many, but exactly there are big change. So this is something our experience in our project in Kenya.
Yeah, this issue of knowledge, I mean, a lot of times we assume that, I mean, farmers do not have the scientific knowledge in production. And so a lot of times, especially in extension delivery, we are quick to start giving out solutions to what we think the challenge is and what we think they should do. Forgetting that these farmers have been doing their farming over the years. They have gained a lot of experience and they have a lot of knowledge, we did a research project in a small community and we're amazed to find out a lot of knowledge that they were holding to their chests. I mean, for example, in Ghana, we have developed different varieties of maize, a lot of, in fact, some have a lot of protein content. And you realize that these we think are very good products, but the farmers are not taking it. And so we found out that they had a lot of knowledge. So what we did was we captured that knowledge. We did videos and audio recordings of series of knowledge. We developed knowledge products from what they know. And then we got a scientist to sort of add a little science to it. And then we gave this knowledge products to them. Now, we had a network in a library where we stored these videos and audio products on a server there. And then we gave them a little capacity on how to, it was a simple tool. You just click a button and it starts playing. So if you want to know about how to plant tomatoes, you see the tomato fruit, the picture there, you click on it and then the video plays. And we realized that, I mean, there were some challenges in the way they were doing their things. And so the science sort of corrects those challenges. Now, because they saw themselves in the video, and they saw that it is the knowledge that they had given that had been sort of polished, it was easy for them to pick up the corrections in the way they were doing their things. And it was easy for them to uptake those technologies. And so I think we have to be very innovative and know that if you tell me that I'm a fool, excuse my language, and I don't know anything you tell me, I'll not listen because you have already condemned me. But if you come and you tell me that, oh, you are a wise man, what you are doing is very good, but if you did it this way, I mean, I will more easily adapt what you are saying. And so these are some of the innovatives that we have to put in place in especially extension delivery systems. Let's acknowledge their knowledge. Again, finally, the issue about policy. I mean, Ken talked about ICT policy and agricultural policy. Fortunately, I've been involved in both in my country. But the challenge is that we do ICT policy, we do agricultural policy. Agricultural policy development is only agriculturists developing their policy. ICT, it is only the techies developing our policies. And then we expect that they should work together. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. In fact, from the beginning of this conference, it has been said over and over again that we need to sort of bring them together. And so if you are developing an agricultural policy, make sure that the ICT strategies are within the agricultural policy. So that when I'm implementing agricultural policy, I know that these are the strategies that I'll have to apply in terms of ICT in implementing that policy. Now we are implementing our agricultural policies and there is no mention of ICT in that policy. Though in our ICT policy for Ghana, we have wonderful strategies for agricultural development. But the agricultural people say, oh, that is their policy. It is not our policy. We are implementing our policy. So with policy, we can, when we're able to bring, in the development phase, bring them together and then develop at that level, the success, the rate of success, I think, will be much, much higher than what we are seeing now. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Artesh, please, but be concise because we only have 25 minutes to go. Protocol says...
I'm conscious that you're struggling with time. No, I think, in fact, the previous speaker just mentioned, because I wanted to bring also the policy dimension of all of this, because it's very important that, the agriculture arm and the telecommunication side, ICT, so that they talk together when we are developing policy. But since we are talking about women, I think those policies also should be gender sensitive. That's an important part of it, because unless that is recognized in the policies, then we will miss a number of opportunities there.
And it shouldn't be just gender dimension checked. It should be really concrete one as well. Then we have actually two more pointers. I'm sure that you want to talk. It's a passionate subject, but please be concise to the panelists, since I want to give 20 minutes to the audience. Now, new partnership models. We're talking about a lot of private-public partnerships and so on. How can actually ICT help that?
Okay, as we have already more or less touched the partnership aspect, I mean, public-private partnership and also partnership between the ministries of ICT and the Ministry of Agriculture, I will touch another aspect of that partnership, which is youth, and it is actually our next pointer. So I think that youth are really key and playing a big role and crucial for ICT for agriculture. First of all, we know that young people are not that involved in agriculture or are less and less interested in getting involved in agriculture, while agriculture is very key and the food security depends on that inclusion of young people in agriculture. At the same time, we know that young people are ICT savvy. And we know, for example, as you all know, that Facebook has been, let's say, developed by a young people who is now a billionaire, okay? So because of that, we think that the young people can play a key role in ICT for agriculture. They are not only useful to replace the old farmer, but they are also bringing innovation in agriculture to sustain the sector, but also to improve their livelihood. And at CTA, we are developing a number of initiatives around that, and I'm responsible of a Youth in Agriculture and ICT project at CTA. And for the conference we are organizing next week, we have launched a hackathon. We have launched a regional competition that we call Agri-Hack Championship. What are we doing? We have collaborated with ICT hubs from East Africa because it is the pilot experiences. And they have organized like national hackathon, and they selected some young people who have developed ICT tools for agriculture. And we have the national winners, and all the national winners, they will meet together here in Kigali to do, let's say, the finals of that hackathon. So in about 5 days, we'll do the finals of that hackathon. And the young people, they are coming up with great ideas. Some people have developed like a device that is testing soil fertility, so that quick reports are provided to the farmer or to extension officers so that they really know how they can manage, how they can work with that land. There are other applications that they are developing in Kenya, in Ethiopia, in Madagascar, etc. And all those young people, they will come together to do the final, and the best of them will be awarded. They will win not only cash prize, but they will also win incubation period for them to really have business advices, to have technical agriculture advices, to have technical ICT support, so that their products are bettered, are more or less finalized, so that they are more or less ready to launch it. So what I want to stress on is the importance that we have to reserve to young people in agriculture and in all ICT for agriculture policy that we put in place. I think young people has to be let's say, considered as a key stakeholder in all ICT policy that we are developing. Young people are there and have to be considered, I mean, at a high level, because through that we are promoting innovation, we are promoting employment, entrepreneurship. And I was very happy when I read this morning that they organized in the framework of this conference a competition. Let's say they awarded young entrepreneurs yesterday, okay? And the president was there. And one of the 5 entrepreneurs that were awarded is a young person who has developed an application for fish farmers. So it was Fisher Mate, I think they're called, and they've received the prize. So I'm really happy that we are having more and more those applications targeting agriculture. And I really believe that it is in that area that we have a lot of opportunity for young people's livelihood, but also for agricultural sector to get sustained and developed.
Thank you, Ken. Okay. Very concise, please.
Thank you very much. Yes, I have some ideas how we can make it sustainable. Yes. Let me explain again that something that our experience in that project. In 10 years before, there is some many farmers there. Just they, that cultivate and harvest and bring their products to the market. After cultivation, after that harvesting, they try to find market. But during our project, we make kind of a capacity development of farmers to conduct something market survey and the program analysis, as well as something making their cultivation plan by themselves. So what happened after that project? Now the people, they select the crops, which one is best, then they select the best season, best timing to sell the product in the best price. Now they get money more than the before. So what's happened then? They really need more information about the market. So there is now a chance of the business. I think that ESOP was that kind of network. It's something cost. But how we can make it sustainable? Yes, someone have to pay for the services. Who? Yes, customer, beneficiaries. So if the beneficial customer has a good awareness and change their mind. Cultivation and sell, no. Cultivate for sell. Then there is a market that happen. So there is someone willing to pay for the services. It becomes something kind of business. So I believe that ICT is just tool. We should more concentrate about capacity development, the awareness, and the mindset change of the customers. Then we can create the market. This is something my experience.
Thank you. Artesh, very quickly.
Very quick. No, I want to mention that for the partnership with private sector that has been mentioned, it is very important that the role and responsibilities of the private sector and the public sector are clearly defined. And normally and usually it should be even through formal written agreements. So that is one element. And also from FAO's perspective, some roles need to be split. For instance, one part deal with content, another part deal with value added and service delivery. So this is the best practice that we have noticed. So those are the compliments that I wanted to mention.
Thank you, Artesh. Well, we are getting bad news, actually. We have precisely 10 minutes to go. So we want to open up the floor. Any questions, please? Well. Wilson, maybe we can take all the questions and then they can answer? I know it's a passionate subject, but...
Thank you. I'm Jean-Claude, and I'm conservation biologist. When we are talking about agriculture, the main problem agriculture is facing today is just climate change, global warming, and the big problem behind is the loss of biological diversity. As conservationists, we are facing a problem that we can't invest in conservation because conservation is like a passion. Because till now, people, they don't understand what to conserve because you ask them to touch, but sustainably. When you are telling them to grow and grow much, they understand you more than they can understand us. Then, how can you try to work together with conservationists so that you can produce more and sustainably? And as biologists, we tried to link conservation and multimedia, trying to see how multimedia can help conservation, just using technology in conservation to reach more people as much as we can. Thank you.
Please be very, very concise. I'll take two more first and then... very concise.
Okay, thank you. Time will not allow us to go deep. My name is Amatsiko. I'm a development economist and I'm in marketing. I'm from Uganda and East Africa. Basically, I was at the evening when Mr. Kobayashi was launching K-Lab, and one of the innovators from KIST, the Science of Technology, College of Science and Technology, former KIST, is on that equipment that tests soil fertility. Yesterday, another guy from Tanzania was still looking at farmer information. The issue is, if we are to have transformative agriculture, which Mary is talking about, we need to have planned, structured, predictable, and profitable agriculture to move from the level where the ordinary farmer engages in agriculture as an instinct, the elite, you guys here, you engage in it as a hobby, and the academicians, they leave it in the lab. So, and also innovation needs to be planned and structured, because Mr. JICA during the K-Lab launch was asking these people, did you make a survey? Who told you that this is what the farmers will need? Because we need to move from this thing of awarding to financing. Innovation, research must be financed. If Africa is to move to where Europe is, the corporate world, you need to move from tokenism of awarding to go into real financing of innovation. Thank you.
Maybe he could also pitch in.
Thank you. I didn't request to speak here, but as I'm given this opportunity, I concur with what was said by all the panelists. Regarding the ICT in a comprehensive way. Integrated, comprehensive policy users. I think what everyone said here is really commendable. And when it comes to what we are doing here in Rwanda, I would not concur with the experience in Ghana, because here what we do in policy making, we try to integrate. For example, Mary here is coordinating information and communication, but he is based in agriculture. She is someone who is actually implementing ICT, but based in agriculture. It means that ICT policies are embedded actually in our strategic plan for agriculture transformation. It's not like we do ICT policy and when it comes to implementation, we lose that integration in different sectors. But the point I wanted really to make, because I'm given this opportunity, is that we are talking about farmers, but agriculture is more than a farmer. Agriculture is complex, is comprehensive. We have also to talk about traders. We have to talk about other people who are making sure that what a farmer is doing can be also sustained. That's why we come up with, tools, ICT tools like commodities exchange that can, incentivize farmers to increase their productivity. That's why actually you've mentioned this weather-based insurance. It's a tool that is that can support a farmer to increase productivity. So it's not only in Kenya that it is being experienced. We are also implementing weather-based insurance here in Rwanda as well. We have started 2 years ago, but we are making sure that many farmers access this, this tool and increase productivity. And I think that one thing, and I think that yes, integrated, comprehensive, but there are key things that really need to be, to be considered when it comes to productivity. Let me come back to that farmer, because how do a farmer access easily input? Because that's the first thing. Input and information. Here we've tried to use our ID card, which is also a very high technology, to come up with a voucher system that can identify a farmer who access a voucher to take up the fertilizer. So it's also something that can have helped our farmers to increase productivity using this ICT tool. And I think as Mr. Rohentos mentioned, we have an opportunity here, and I ask everybody here to participate in this coming conference that will be held in Rwanda. We'll have enough time to discuss now about agriculture and ICT for agriculture next week. The whole week is dedicated to that. Thank you.
Maybe please rest assured that we're going to have an online forum as well to discuss further. The protocol really says that we need to get out from this room 10 minutes before. So maybe we can give them a response from the audience, our panelists, from these 3 comments and questions. Very, very precise, please.
Yeah, the first one I want to talk about was the issue about the problem of agriculture. I think climate change is, for me, it's not a major thing that we can't do anything about. I think we are capable of adapting to the challenges of climate change. The point you raised that I think we'd have to look at carefully is the issue about conservation. Our agriculture is very extractive, And so biodiversity, we are losing them and all sorts of things. And we would have to see how we can deal with those things. And that's an issue that I think we should think together and see how we can conserve biodiversity, despite the fact that we need to feed our people, population is increasing, and we need to have higher productivity to be able to feed our people. And the issue about policy, I think Rwanda is very fortunate. You have the hindsight to look at the mistakes that we had our ICT policy in 2000. Our agricultural policy, we had it in 2005, thereabout. And so now the knowledge is there, and I'm happy you have learned and you are going on. But what we are saying is that from now, we should rather look at these things and see how we can move forward. That's the only way we can get some of these challenges addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. As I said, the protocol is actually barking us on closing this session. As PS said, we have ICT for Agriculture Week next week. So we have plenty of time to talk about this issue. I know you are very, very passionate about this. And we are going to actually have an open forum, online forum. So if you can give us your contact, these are the email that's down there. If you send us your name, we'll send you the email saying like how to get into this online forum, which is hosted by FAO. And oh yes, he also has interesting articles on ICT for development.
Yeah.
Which ICT for agriculture.
It's a very interesting publication. I brought some copies, not enough for everybody, but they are available online. Yes. So there are really ICT and food security. So there are a number of experiences there that can be helpful also.
It's better you download it online, basically. So thank you. Please give a round of applause to the panelists. And also Wilson, he has been great facilitators to make this session a great session. Thank you. Please go straight up to the. So Prime Minister is coming precisely at 1 o'clock.